This is the story of a weapon that was never meant to fly, of a pilot who was never meant to fight, and of a single shot fired from a service pistol, a shot that, by every law of ballistics and armor penetration, should have accomplished nothing. But it did. The date was September 19, 1944. The location was the sky over Haraucourt, France. The 4th Armored Division of General Patton's Third Army was locked in what would become one of the largest tank battles ever fought on the Western Front, and overhead, at just 85 miles per hour, an unarmed observation. Aircraft flew directly into the guns of the German 113th Panzer Brigade. What happened next would be witnessed by his wingman, and neither man would ever see combat the same way again. Major Charles Carpenter was, by trade, a history teacher from Moline, Illinois. 32 years old, husband, father. In 1942, he traded his classroom for a commission in the United States Army. By 1944, he was assigned to the 4th Armored Division as an artillery spotter, flying the L-4 Grasshopper, a fabric-covered Piper Cub with a top speed of 85 miles per hour, a stall speed so low it could practically hover, and zero offensive armament. This was the most unlikely war machine ever committed to combat. It had no armor, no self-sealing fuel tanks, no guns. Its job was to fly low and slow over German positions, identify targets, and radio coordinates back to American artillery battalions miles behind the line. But Charles Carpenter had no intention of remaining a spectator. Earlier that year, while operating near Avranches, Carpenter had commandeered a jeep, joined an armored column, and climbed onto a Sherman tank to man its .50 caliber machine gun. He led the assault into a German-held town. He also accidentally ordered his gunner to fire on an American bulldozer tank. He was nearly court-martialed. Only the personal intervention of General George S. Patton himself saved him. Patton saw something in Carpenter that military regulations could not suppress. He did not punish him. He decorated him, and Carpenter returned to the air with a singular obsession. He would no longer simply find the enemy. He would destroy them. By September 1944, Major Carpenter's L-4 Grasshopper, which he had named Rosie the Rocketer, carried 6 M1A1 bazookas, 3 mounted to each wing strut, wired directly to a bank of switches in the cockpit. His fellow pilots called him Bazooka Charlie. The Germans, once they learned to fear the little yellow cub, called him something else, Der verrückte Major, the Mad Major. September 19th, 1944, the Battle of Haraucourt. For 3 days, the German 113th Panzer Brigade had been throwing itself against Combat Command A of the 4th Armored Division. Thick ground fog had grounded most Allied aircraft. But by 1400 hours, the mist had burned off just enough for a single, fragile spotter plane to take to the sky. Major Carpenter climbed to 1,500 feet, his bazookas loaded. He was not alone. Flying as his wingman in a second L-4 was another artillery spotter, a pilot whose name is lost to most histories, but whose eyes would witness what came next. Below them, the village of Haraucourt and the surrounding Lorraine countryside had become a killing field. More than 200 German tanks and assault guns had been committed to Hitler's personal order to halt Patton's advance. Panzereifers, Sturmgeschütz den Dres, and the dreaded Panthers, rolling east to west in company strength, their commanders emboldened by the temporary absence of American P-47 Thunderbolts. Carpenter spotted them first. A column of German armor, advancing single file along a secondary road toward an exposed American water point defended by just 6 infantrymen. He did not radio for artillery. He did not wait for reinforcements. He pushed the stick forward. The L-4 Grasshopper had never been designed to dive. Its wooden propeller, fabric skin, and 65-horsepower engine were built for gentle turns and lazy circles. But Carpenter threw Rosie the Rocketer into a 30-degree nose-down attitude, aiming directly at the lead Panzer. At 200 meters, he flipped the switches. 6 bazooka tubes rippled fire. He missed. The rockets impacted short, kicking up geysers of French soil. German hatches slammed shut. Machine guns elevated. The sky, once safe for observation aircraft, became a net of tracers. Carpenter pulled up hard, the Cub shuddering at the edge of its stress limits. He had expended half his ammunition in one pass. He had nothing to show for it but a column of very angry, very alerted panzer crews now tracking him through their sights. He had one option: go lower, slow down, make himself an impossible target. On his second pass, he dove to 100 meters, then 50. He was so low that German infantry on the ground later reported seeing the pilot's face, the open side door of his cockpit, the white star on his fuselage. He fired again. 2 rockets. One struck a Panzer IV directly on the engine deck, punching through the thin rear armor. The tank erupted. Black smoke boiled from its ventilation grates. Its crew bailed out, clutching their throats, coughing. But the Mad Major was not finished. He climbed, turned, and saw that his wingman, flying a completely unarmed L4, carrying not a single bazooka, was still with him. And in that moment, Carpenter realized the second tank in the column had turned its turret. Not toward him. Toward his wingman. Carpenter had no rockets left. His wingman had no guns at all. In 10 seconds, a 75mm shell would reduce the second. Grasshopper to burning fabric and falling ash. What Charles Carpenter did next defies every manual ever written by the United States Army Air Forces. He reached down to his hip, unholstered his M1911A1, service pistol, caliber .45, effective range, against personnel 50 meters, effective range against a 30-ton armored vehicle moving at combat speed 0. He banked hard, dropped his altitude to just 30 meters, and flew directly at the Panzer's open commander's hatch. The German tank commander, standing exposed in his cupola, was directing his gunner toward the defenseless wingman. He never saw the yellow cub coming. Carpenter steadied the pistol against the doorframe of his cockpit. At a distance of less than 20 meters, with the wind tearing past him at 90 miles per hour, he fired. 3 shots. The first struck the turret side. The second ricocheted off the cupola rim. The third round entered the open hatch and found its mark. The tank commander collapsed into his turret. The Panzer's coaxial machine gun fell silent. The turret traversed wildly, aimlessly, then stopped. The tank advanced another 10 meters, veered off the road, and ground to a halt in a shallow ditch. His wingman would later report what he saw. Not an armored kill, not a catastrophic ammunition detonation, but a tank rendered leaderless, paralyzed, neutralized by a standard-issue sidearm, fired from an aircraft that should never have been in the fight at all. The Battle of Aricourt ended with American tanks holding the field. The German 113th Panzer Brigade was shattered, over. 200 tanks and assault guns destroyed, or captured against just 50. American Shermans lost. It was the largest tank battle on the Western Front, and it was won, in part, by a high school history teacher in a Piper Cub. Charles Carpenter survived the war. He was officially credited with 6 tank kills, making him a tank ace. Unofficial estimates range as high as 14. He never took a scratch from enemy fire. He was promoted to lieutenant colonel. He received the Silver Star, the Bronze Star, and the Air Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster. After the war, he returned to Illinois. He taught history. He ran a boys' camp in the Ozarks. He wrote poetry about the things he had seen and the men he had fought beside. His airplane, Rosie the Rocketer, was left in a surplus yard in Germany in 1946. Most thought it had been scrapped. But in 2017, an airline pilot and historian named Joe Shield traced its serial number across 3 continents, from Austria to Switzerland to the United States. Today, the L4 Grasshopper, flown by Bazooka Charlie, is under restoration. It will fly again. And the shot? The .45 caliber round fired from an open cockpit into an open hatch? It is not in the official records. The Army does not award tank kill credits for sidearms. But the men who were there, the wingmen who saw it, the infantrymen at that water point, the tankers of the 4th Armored Division, they never forgot.